Hello, everyone. Welcome to their Spiritual Spotlight series. Today, I am joined by Dawn DelVecchio. She's a priestess, mentor, and sacred feminine leadership guide. She's the host of a private priestess community and the founder of the annual Return of the Priestess Speaker series. She also channels guides and non physical master teachers, including divine feminine masters, which we would call goddesses. She does all of this because this is part of her soul's mission. Dawn, thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. I'm so happy you're here.
Rachel, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here with you.
I'm so excited. I just felt like the whole energy just shifts. Like it's like, oh, I felt like the masters are here. I love this. I just felt
Mm,
that shift. So you've had over a 37-year-old journey in this sacred space. What was
yes.
maybe the catalyst that led you to take on the mantle of a priestess mentor, especially after your rededication in 2017?
Yeah, great question. Well, originally it came from having a home birth in 1984 in a state where it was neither legal or illegal because so few people were having home births.
Yeah.
So my midwives, I had two midwives and an apprentice of theirs, connected me with other women they were supporting for their birth process. We started a mother's support group that began exploring tarot, feminine spirituality, goddess, etc. So it was early in my, I was very young when that began. I was 19. And so throughout my life and the many experiences and journeys and career choices I've made, what stayed with me was a connection with Divine Mother, the tarot, astrology, and women's circles from time to time. Sometimes I would go long periods without any groups, but it was always a thread in the fabric of my life. And then through a few different a journey with the warrior energy, I was a martial artist for many years, and then as a professional writer for many years, and then a business coach. I had an experience in Bali, actually Bali, Indonesia, at a women's awakening conference where I encountered a lot of women who were talking about being a priestess and goddess lore. And some of them, I'm sure, were authentic, mature, had done shadow work, had been through some dark nights of the soul,
Yeah.
but others were quite young and new and experienced. And I really felt at that time, Divine Mother come very strongly to me and say, it is time for you to put aside all of your chasing of otherworldly things to step into what you came here for, because we need priestesses and we need feminine leaders who have the courage, the groundedness, the capacity to hold space for shadow, and really the wisdom tools to guide others for the times to come. And that was back in, I want to say, 2016. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So you mentioned a couple of times inner shadow, work healing. Can you maybe expand on this and share how it integrates into the sacred arts of the priestess?
Yeah. Okay. So we were all born into, I'm a little bit channeling this here. I'm just bringing it through, I would say. We were all born into what we could call the 3D matrix. That's my language, 3D matrix, but others use it as well. A realm in which we are focused upon the material and not upon the divine, not upon our own inner divinity. So we chase the things of this world, and we create our identities based on external markers like our looks, our values, how much money we have, all of these things, right?
Absolutely.
And in the process of that journey, we encounter and bump up against plenty of other people, including our parents and teachers who guided us. And what happens is we because we're off track with the love that we are. When I speak about divinity at the ultimate level, what I mean is love unconditional, the
Mm,
oneness of all of us. So when we are not in alignment with that, we end up having experiences in this incarnation and others that create trauma, distress, upset, guilt, shame, etc., increasing separation between people, between our loved ones and ourselves, our capacity to really expand into the present moment, to be happy, etc.
mhm.
So what happens is the uncomfortable feelings, the things we might feel guilty about, or maybe the traumas we've encountered as children or other lifetimes from other lifetimes, we bury them and they become hidden in the shadows of our subconscious. Just like an iceberg, you see the tip at the top, but you know it's a massive thing beneath. most of our programming, whether it's trauma or just conditioning program into operating with the dominant paradigm, which is one of separation, domination, and control. That is under the surface of our conscious awareness. And so as we are moving through this ascension journey on planet Earth right now, we are being bombarded with solar light, photonic light, the light of the central sun as we align more our solar system with it. And so because of that, the light is like literally shining a light on the shadows in our subconscious. And what's happening is that's creating incredible disruption and dysregulation for those who've never done any shadow work, such that, crazy making happens, short-term decision making happens, more attack, more fear. So shadow work is the process of consciously going in with guides or with literal physical guides who are mentors and know how to guide you through shadow work, or spiritual guides, to look at our own conditioning programs, our own trauma, our own judgments, our own self-judgments, our own self-loathing, all of that stuff, to bring it to the light and love it up into frequency, to transmute the shadow into more light. And that is what we are doing. So when I talk about shadow work, I talk about it at both the psychological and the spiritual level, or the psycho-spiritual level. And as we do that, what happens, it's literally like you could imagine, like you got a whole lot of dust bunnies. They're hiding out in the shadows underneath the bed of your conscious mind. And you start cleaning them out, and then you have more room. You have more room to bring in more light. So the work of the priestess can be manifold. There are different priestesses doing many different things on this planet. And having led for Return of the Priestess speaker series, I've interviewed about 90 priestesses. Wow. So I can say for sure all around the planet that many priestesses doing many different things. But perhaps one thing we all share in common is this devotion to the divine and the choice to align our will with a higher will in service to humanity, to love, to the divine.
I love that. So let's talk about this annual Return of Priestess speaker series. Yes. What inspired you to create this platform, and what transformational stories have emerged from it?
Wow. Yeah. So the name or the words Return of the Priestess came in a download to me, I would say mid 2019. And because I had been in marketing and copywriting and coaching for a number of years, I knew that when such a powerful statement dropped in, that you go buy the URL. So,
amen.
So that was the first thing I did. And then I sat on it because I actually knew what it was. I knew that my next step was to literally rise my own light up and shine it to call my community to me. That I had a contractual soul contract agreement to serve people at intimate levels, but also at more, like through a platform like Return of the Priestess.
Right.
So, but I was quite nervous about doing that, and Divine Mother, and I really feel like this was Isis, particularly the goddess Isis, had been my support ally for stepping into my priestess leadership role, and to call the priestesses back to the temple, the inner temple, for our own sacred feminine leadership. And so I knew kind of what it was, and a bunch of people and circumstances came in to support that unfolding, even though I was kind of quaking in my boots, kind of that thing of like, what if I have a party and no one comes? Except in this case, what if I have a party that cost me about $8,000 or $9,000 and nobody comes?
Yeah.
So I carefully saved the money just in case I had to take a loss. And I worked with my tech VA to arrange the timing for it, which was going to be early April 2020, having no idea that would be when we were all in lockdown. I see you're getting the
yes,
implication here. So Return of the Priestess unfolded, the first one, and we had basically a kind of captive audience, if you will.
Yeah.
And one of the free bonuses I gave at that time, thinking I'd have, maybe 100 people register, was a one-on-one 30-minute call with me. Well, after, thousands. thousands. So we had to cut that one off at like 150, but nonetheless, I got to speak with about 150 women one-on-one to really receive firsthand for them the transformation that unfolded. There were literally women who were on the verge of suicide who found their mission. There were women who were reinvigorated in what their inklings had been for a long time. There were women who stepped into their leadership, who dared to boldly step into what they were called to do. There were women who worked with me. There were women who chose other leaders on that summit to work with. But I would say overall, we had a global impact of awakening the sacred feminine leader in women and connecting that energy of leadership, spirituality, and the feminine.
So why do you feel like right now, 2020, 2021, present day, that really leaning into the sacred feminine, stepping into the priestess leadership role is so paramount right now in this current state?
Yes, we have lived on a planet that has been based in a paradigm of domination. And in that paradigm of domination, the masculine has been dominating the feminine. And that's internally as well as externally in terms of male and female, right? And so that is also extended to the paradigm of the divine. So the God has been a disembodied, thinking dude with the white beard and clouds and sitting on the clouds and all that stuff, and that is not balanced. That only speaks to half the population, if that. And really truly at the highest level, God, if you will, God is a title that represents the love that we all are. Now, living here as we do in a polarity, a system of polarity where we have, for procreation, we have a male and a female, right? We have a planetary family of females and males, and we are moving toward a consciousness that is in partnership with Earth and each other. So we cannot continue to have a hierarchical, a dominator model. We need more of a partnership model. To use Riane Eisler's terms, I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but she wrote The Chalice and the Blade many years ago, a very influential work in my life. And she's part of the Partnership Studies or the Partnership Institute. She's the founder of that. So this partnership model, this we could also call it the spiritual level, the inner marriage, the hieros of the inner feminine and the inner masculine within women and within men. And so in order for us to really begin to harmonize and to value, also to take care of our Mother Earth, our planet, and to honor all of it, the feminine aspect of that which we call God must rise. And the priestesses are the embodied emissaries of Divine Mother, of the mother aspect of God, the nurturing, encompassing, embracing, folding in, holding, birthing aspect of that which we call God.
That just sounds so important, especially right now. My goodness, I'm having a moment in my brain. With the focus on the sacred feminine leadership for a planet in transition, what are the codes of light that you frequently talk about, and why are they vital at this junction?
Well, I touched on the codes of light a little bit with the regard to, I'll just speak sort of like scientifically, not really, like literally right now.
Like all the light that you said, the shining.
Yeah, this light that's coming in. So our solar system is moving through an area of the galaxy called the photon belt. So we are being bombarded with photonic light. So that's like literal measurable, right? And we can, and then there's the solar flares, the solar activation. Of course, the sun goes through cycles of that. And then there's also our positioning in the arms of the Milky Way galaxy, where we're coming into more alignment with that central sun energy. And that means that we're able to receive that more. So that's at the sort of physical, literal level. And so when I refer to, someone asked me, one of my priestess mentees asked me this the other day, so what do I mean by codes? The codes are literally like frequency rays that are coming in. It's part of, we see the awakening of humanity. We see even back, in the 80s when all this began for me, we saw suddenly people starting to ask questions like, gee, maybe we should recycle instead of throw everything away. And what about all this plastic? And I don't think I want to have my baby in a hospital full of drugs and
Right.
chemicals. And how about saving seeds and organic? I don't know that I want to have all these chemicals and GMOs in my food. All of these are the result of a kind of awakening because of the light codes that are activating consciousness.
Mm,
They're reawakening us to a higher order of consciousness. We have been deeply asleep in looking at again, to the outside world, like, how much money do I have? How good do I look? Well, how am I going to get a husband or a wife, or all of that material stuff? And while, yes, we came to this physical earth to have a physical
right.
experience, we've been putting the cart before the horse, or the servant in front of the master, or the
Mm,
ego in front of spirit. And these codes of light are enlightening our consciousness to realize, wow, when I connect with my higher self and lead my life from that way, I'm happier, I'm more free, I magnetize more success, more wealth, more opportunities, more joy to myself. I simplify my life, and I stop serving an ego that's never satisfied.
I love that. I mean, it just, and do you find that right now, like it's 2023 right now, it's October 2023 when we're having this recording. Do you find like, especially right now, this is really coming onto the planet and a lot of people are shifting?
Oh, yeah. I call this the quickening, actually. And I've been in collaboration with a number of sisters to create experiences and offerings to support the increased frequency, the quickening, the increased dysregulation of the systems as the old unloving systems are unraveling.
Yes.
And even though we're just seeing the hints of it now, it's going to accelerate like a snowball rolling downhill kind of thing. And so as so for us, the light workers, the star seeds, the priestesses, our job right now is to keep pace with that acceleration, because those who do not have skills, who have never done any shadow work, who are deeply invested in the unloving systems, not saying that they're unloving themselves, but
Right.
their jobs, their careers, their money, their investments, as those unravel, their own dysregulation is going to increase.
Yes.
So yes, right now as we record this, we are in a quickening segment of time, and I don't know that it's going to slow down. Perhaps after the winter solstice, we might get a bit of a respite, like from an astrological
Right.
perspective. However, we are increasing the transformational energies, the light is increasing. And so our role is to stay um, above the fray and in the frequency of love, in the vertical axis of attunement with our higher self. And the other side of the vertical axis is connected with Gaia, connected with our Earth Mother as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I liken it to, I mean, the work that I do is I work with a central column of light, and you make sure
Ah,
that you're, definitely connect. This is pretty much the same thing, just different terms. And it's
yes,
so important right now to stay just even grounded and centered, and and I run a doctor's office, so it's a little bit chaotic. And so it's just very interesting that, like you said, like you're having this calling, and I love the fact that you're bringing together people to help those that may not have a daily spiritual hygiene practice or a meditative practice or a shadow side practice, that you can say, okay, here's some tools. Let's help you
yes,
through this. Because, like you said, it's also to be of service. I love
yes,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I did not know that you're working with the column of light, and this is exactly where we need to be at, and to bring those tools to as many people as we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do. I love energetic meditation. So
Mhm.
everything, central column of light. Yes, ma'am. Everything
Mhm.
is there. So, with a rich background in evolutionary astrology, tarot reading, and NLP, how do these practices intersect and enhance your role as a priestess mentor?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for asking that too, because I didn't get to talk about that with regard to the shadow work. So,
Oh,
in terms of NLP or neuro linguistic programming, I was trained by some beautiful people who were really masterful at it. And I bring this to play when I work mostly with one on one clients, but sometimes some of the hypnotic language in group sessions to do inner healing work. The NLP, particularly timeline reimprinting, is a powerful tool for shadow work,
mhm.
for literally going back to places in our past, either this incarnation or others, where we had trauma that needs to be reimprinted, where we need healing, where we're calling for transformation so that we can shift the pattern of what we're doing now that's not serving us.
Right.
So that's definitely a shadow work tool.
I love that. Like, I love that. Wow, that's so interesting. Okay. I'm having a moment in my mind. I'm like, wow, I really, that's so powerful. Because I think a lot of people that may not be familiar with this kind of work, I don't think they realize how much trauma and energy and everything gets impacted into our cellular tissue. And like you say, go into maybe doing shadow work or whatnot. It's like a lot of people, I don't think, the body keeps the score, like,
Yes.
yeah, they
Yeah.
don't realize how much trauma is held in their body. And I would imagine with your clients, you're able to identify, have them walk it through, and actually do exercises to help them release it.
Yes, yeah, and that changes the trajectory of our choices, of our health potentially. It changes the entire patterning from the subconscious level because when we're little, we're dependent on the adults around us, and
Mhm.
we figure out methods of coping that serve us. And what happens is they don't serve us necessarily when we grow up. And so even though you may have grown up in a reasonably stable family, not too much in the way of trauma, it wasn't anything that big of a deal. Remember that you were raised most likely by parents who were deeply steeped in a 3D matrix based on domination, control, all kinds of things. Kids should be seen and not heard, all different things. Going into school and doing the rote behaviors of school,
Mhm.
obeying and the bell, like Pavlov's dogs, the bell rings. Oh, it's time for a break. Getting permission to go to the bathroom and have a pee, these things are in there. And
Yes.
if we are to step into our authentic leadership, to open to be able to receive higher guidance, to follow our inner guidance and trust ourselves and not just trust authorities out there, that those patterns need to be re-imprinted.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so it doesn't have to necessarily be like heavy trauma because it's
No.
easy for people to say, like, I didn't have heavy trauma. Yeah, my family had their stuff, their patterns, their dysfunctions, whatever, but there wasn't serious stuff. And yet still patterning resulted where I experienced limitations in my capacity to reach, to serve, to receive abundantly, to live authentically, I would say, to live in alignment with my truth.
Right.
So that's the NLP piece. You want me to talk a little
Yep.
about the astrology too? So,
Yes. Yes. Because
okay.
I'm not too familiar with evolutionary astrology.
Okay. So evolutionary astrology was brought forward, was channeled forward by a man named Jeffrey Wolf Green back in I want to say maybe the 60s. And I trained with 3 of his direct students. But I was studying his work for a number of years. And it all came about because I had a dark night of the soul. I had an astrology reading and the astrologer at that time guided me to his books. So evolutionary astrology really is looking at your soul's evolutionary journey through multiple incarnations. It's based on the premise of many, many incarnations. And within the chart, we look for the soul signatures, what your soul came in with, what the trauma and soul fragmentation signatures are, what your soul intended to grow into in this life, the skills, abilities, and talents you already have, the things that it's time for you to let go of, your patterns in relationship at a soul level. So that's how I work with clients. That's mostly how I work one-on-one with clients. And then sometimes we bring in the NLP if they want to work longer with me. But to really look at the big picture context of why are you having the same pattern in your life that's
Yeah.
annoying the heck out of you? Or, you know, why are you, is it okay for you to make that big investment decision? Will it pan out? You
Yeah.
know, from a soul level, is it aligned with your soul? So it's not
Mm,
about a timing issue of like, oh, invest at this time because you're going to make $1 million. It's not that kind of prognostication, but rather your soul is aligned for these types of investments of your energy and time. And then we look at the timing of things based on the transits from there.
that sounds like very powerful work. Like it's not just a, oh, I'm a Leo and this is what house my whatever is in. Like this is my
Yeah.
soul. Like
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
okay.
And in fact, just to kind of illustrate that at a picture
Sure.
level, we start in evolutionary astrology. The first thing we look at is the outermost planet, which is Pluto, and then the outer planets, rather than what's your sun sign, what's your
Yeah, which
moon, what's your
moon?
Venus. All of that gets plugged into
Right.
the outer planets by relation, by aspect, we call it, the houses, and also the nodes of the moon, which show the soul's journey or trajectory in this incarnation.
That sounds like very transformative, powerful work for anyone that is interested in that type of reading. Like I imagine a lot
Yes.
of your clients are like, oh, that makes sense.
A lot of ahas, big time ahas. It's a very, very helpful tool for people to understand and understand their inner workings, their soul architecture,
Yeah.
their tendencies. And a lot of times, because so many of us were born deep in the 3D matrix, depending on how old we were made wrong for our tendencies. We were asked, what's the matter with you? Why can't you blah blah blah? And so this can be a deep confirmation for people. There's nothing wrong with you. You're
Right.
wired to be this way.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like you're a sinner, you did this, you did that. Like, wow, that's
Yeah,
very, very powerful. Go ahead.
for me, I'm a traveler. I love to travel. I've always wanted to travel. I spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia. I
Yeah.
speak other languages, and I was born into a family for very karmic, cosmic reasons that I've also looked into, that they like to stay in one place, even my son. And so there was a lot of wrong making, a lot of dream stomping. And again, I'm not trying to throw my parents under
No.
the bus. They're loving parents. But it's like, where did this kid come from? She's nothing like us. I wasn't wired to stay in one place. And when I finally really saw that, it allowed me to own it without apology and without apology, without making myself wrong, and without trying to negate it and suffer therefore from not allowing myself what was true for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And also probably to, to talk to your son and talk to your parents, like, look, this is what makes me happy, and this is how I'm going to move forward as a being on planet
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. So let me ask you this. If anyone is interested in booking this amazing evolutionary astrology, or maybe they feel like they're having a calling to return back to the priestess, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with me is to get on my email list.
Okay.
That's first of all. So just go to my website, dawndelvecchio.com, and there's a free gift you can get, but that lets you get my weekly newsletter, and it
Nice.
also avails you of any specials I offer. I do offer an astrology special that I'd be happy. I don't have the URL memorized in my head right now, but I'd be happy to provide that
Yeah.
to you if that's helpful.
Yeah.
But really, the best way is to just go to my website and register. And a lot of the language on the website is more definitely geared toward women, but I do work with men too. So not as much. But brothers who may be listening to this, absolutely. If you want an astrology reading, you could also go there and find the contact, find the way to contact me.
Yeah.
Or you can reach out to support@dawndelvecchio.com. That's another way. And Lori, my assistant, will get you the information you need for anything specific that you might want.
I love that. So, as we wrap up, for any woman or man who is listening who feels the call to work the path of empowered leadership as a priestess, maybe what is one first actionable step that they can take to honor the sacred calling?
Mm, wow. Ooh, there's so many things that are coming in. So let me just really feel what is the one thing because everyone's different on their path.
Yeah.
I would say, tune in to develop a practice of sitting in stillness and asking and then waiting to receive. So ask, please guide me, Divine Mother, guide me. What would you have me do to step into this leadership? What would you have me do to take the next step into awakening my sacred feminine gifts? What would you have? Please show me, guide me. Who is the right mentor for me? What is the right spiritual practice for me? And consistency of connecting with divine guidance is absolutely essential. And that can come in an infinite array, but just sitting in that stillness, asking and then receiving is the first step.
It is beautiful. Dawn, thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. You are amazing. Thank you again so much.
Thank you, Rachel.